Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 728 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025, and it looks like it's going to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, he, Mr. Beaver, hey, and not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. How is your mental health doing today, kids and cubs? Mine doing very well, actually. I got a good night's sleep, got to bed earlier than I normally get to bed, and slept a good streak all the way through because I tend not to be the best sleeper, but last night was good. Might have something to do with the little bit of lavender that I put into my pillowcase a couple of weeks ago, and I seem to be sleeping a little deeper and since I've done that. So, at this moment, I will try anything. So, but yes, woke up feeling refreshed instead of tired, which is very nice for a change. And of course, had a wonderful dinner last night. We cooked at home and made ourselves very, very, very meaty and very lots of vegetables, sort of a spaghetti sauce. And so I had some pasta and sauce and all that kind of stuff. My beaver sweetie still cooked a little bland, but try to add a couple more things because my sweetie's still getting over his food poisoning, but seems to be doing better, particularly this morning. So that we might be at the end of the totally bland because I like my spaghetti sauce with a little spicy in it, and there was no spicy yesterday. uh, but yes, and then so overall, yeah, very very good mood, and again, but some weirdness because I remember I was telling you yesterday about things that only seem to happen to me about the allergic reaction just before the show. Well, little known fact, actually unknown fact, is that for the past month and a half on these earphones that I'm using, the earphone cushion goes in this one had disappeared, and I just fell off it and I couldn't find it. And yesterday after the show, I found it. So I put it back on. Well, today, this morning, I woke up to start the show, and the one on this one now, for some reason, has gone for a walk. So it's like the second I find that one, put it back, and I think, okay, I'll have ear cushions in both of them. The other one goes. So I was just like this morning getting ready to start the show, and I'm sort of like, well, it's got to be here somewhere. It was here yesterday. I'm like looking under a few things, and I can't find it. So it means it must have fallen on the floor somewhere. I'm gonna have to get all my hands and knees under the desk and take a look for it. But it's like, come on, man, can I not get both of them at the same time? You gotta laugh. All right, take a look into the magic monitor and see who is here with us. I'm scrolling up here. We have Kit Moan with us. We have Kit Frank with us. We have Kit Elaine as well. Good morning to all of you. Kit Linda M as well is here. Kit Tavi G is also here. Lovely to see you. Kit Il today is here saying good morning. Good morning to you. Hope you are having one of your better days and sending you lots of love and big hugs. We have Kit Tom with us saying good morning, friends. Kit playing with 3D is with us as well. We have Kit Christian. Everybody's talking about someone having been attacked. I'm going to have to. I must have missed something at some point. We have Kit Christian saying bon matin. We have Kit Sharon with us as well. We have Kit Grace in the house with us. Well, at the lodge, I should say, probably, as well as Kit Jillian. Nona Kawal, hello. Lovely to see you. And hello to Panic as well. Hope everything is going well. We have Kit Gilbert with us. Hi. Nice. Joining us from, if I'm understanding uh, the comment, joining us from Knoxville, Tennessee. Well, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So nice to have some American friends tuning in and watching us live in the morning. Hoping that everything is well with you considering the circumstances. But welcome to the Beaver Lodge. Pull up a log. Stay a while. Hope you like it here. Oh, I love that. That's so nice. We have a couple of American friends watching us here in the morning that come in and say hello. So it's nice to have more. Thank you so much for finding us. Um, who else do we have with us here? Looking in the magic monitor again, seeing the same names coming up. So maybe I've got everybody. Oh no, Kit Uncover, of course. Kit Uncover's here. Good morning to you, Kit Chris. Hey, my buddy, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Uh, Mr. Jim is with us. Hello, and say hello to Mama Lori for me. Uh, Mama Lori, not Laura. Um, Kit Saucy is with us. Kit My Dogs Are Goth is with us. And Kit Bucky sliding in across the plate for hello as we get on to do the show. All right, kids and cubs, a lot going on over the past few days. As you know, Parliament's about to resume, so we're getting back into the swing of things, especially now that we're in September. So a lot of all the political parties are at places where they've got plans for the future, and they're looking at what it is that they are going to do. So the Liberals, uh, they have retreat coming up. And of course, as we mentioned yesterday briefly, and we'll get into it today, they announced the opening of the National Projects Office for those big projects of national importance that are, for which they passed C5 in the earlier session. So those two big things are happening here. The NDP's official leadership race, as we mentioned very briefly yesterday, is now officially on the way or underway, I should say. I don't think there's any officially declared candidates at the moment, though there are two and potentially a third name I heard yesterday that have been making some buzz in terms of openly considering running. Two of them seem to be for sure, so we'll get into that a little bit too. Hopefully, we'll have time for all of it. The Greens are also looking towards their future, with Elizabeth May having announced recently that this will definitely be her last term. And if there's any Quebecers here of a certain age, uh, if you remember the year-end special, the Bye Bye, when Dominique Michel was there near the end, she kept on going, "Ce sera mon dernier bye-bye." This is gonna be my last one, and then she'd always come back for the following year, and that happened for a long time. So, it's sort of like Elizabeth May, it's like, "I keep on trying to leave the party, but" So, yes, she has definitely earned her retirement, so, we'll, definitely, look at a little bit of stuff at that, but yes, the Greens are considering their future. And of course, on the side of the Conservatives, with Pierre having, Skippy air quotes, won his seat in Battle River Crowfoot, uh, of course, instead of representing, getting right to work representing the views of the citizens and the residents of Battle River Crowfoot, he is back. His number one priority is making sure he gets to keep his job. So, uh, for those who are looking for some representation or some actual leader of the opposition work being done, that's not going to happen until sometime in late January or February because all of Pierre's attention until that leadership review is over is going to be focused on making sure gets to keep his job and trying to make that as sure a thing as possible, just like he did the race in Battle River Crowfoot, because again, we know that Skippy likes the easy fight. Anyway, had a sip of tea there for the audio listeners. Well, not tea because it's water in the cup, but let's just say it's tea in that instance. Wink. So, kids and cubs, um, let's get into it. Oh, and of course, when I have the title Onwards or Not. So while all these other parties are looking at moving on, we have one provincial party leader, Danielle Smith, who once again um, tripped over herself and hit a speed bump. It's been the third time in the last few weeks that Danielle Smith, usually so smug and confident and headstrong, has had to reverse herself. What a shame. So hopefully we'll have time to get into all of that, kits and cubs. Big show, big agenda, lots to get through. And well, like I said, I don't mind going a little over, but I am trying to make an effort to keep these to 2 hours or less, and not always successful, actually frequently unsuccessful, but it doesn't matter because when the shows take a little longer, it just means more time with the DAMFAM, which is never a bad thing, right? So it's win-win no matter what. All right, kids and cubs, let's take a look. Uh, let's start with the big news that came out earlier before people are starting to gear up and think of the future of their parties. But when we're thinking about the future of the nation, of course, Prime Minister Mark Carney, when he ran for the leadership and then ran in the federal election, talked a lot about having to build things, if I remember the quote somewhat, I might be paraphrasing here, build things on a scale never seen before at speeds never thought possible, or something of the sort. And to that effect, the passage of C5, which passed with support from the Conservative Party of Canada, who for some reason seems to be acting like they regret their decision lately, but we'll just gloss over that for the moment. But that was passed with some rather um, uh, a good amount of speed, and to the dismay of certain people within the Indigenous community in particular, because they were not, it was not done in a participative management way with them participating in the drafting or very much in the amending of the bill. So then we had a series of consultations slash damage control sessions over the course of the summer. And we had Pierre then start popping in going, "Hey, there's no projects built yet," as if we live in a world in which these types of projects would get built and or have a shovel in the ground in 150 days, particularly when you need an office first for the proposals to go through, and the office has not yet been established. Right? So just basically spouting nonsense. Well, it would seem that the office is now a reality. kits and cups. I think it was late last week, if I am not mistaken. I believe it probably was on the Friday that it was officially announced that the think it's the National Projects Office, but there might be a formal name for it that I might have to make sure that I get down. So when I'm referring to this in the future, um, it refer to it by name and rather than just the Major Projects Office. But let's say it's the Major Projects Office. Um, Outlined in Bill C5, so the mandate to create it was put in the bill itself. And the office itself will have a mandate to advance major projects in Canada and to streamline federal regulatory project approval. And this office, it seems from what I understand, uh, will be headquartered in Calgary. However, there might be um, other sites, from what I can understand here, in which there will be some operations or some satellite offices or something of the sort. But let's go to an article here in the Globe and Mail by Nujud Al Maliz, an economics reporter. And we'll talk a little bit about the office here, read the article, and then talk a little bit about some strategy that is at play with this. Prime Minister Mark Carney has tapped Don Farrell, a veteran energy industry executive and former head of Trans Mountain, to lead a new office responsible for fast tracking infrastructure projects of national interest. The Prime Minister's office announced in a news release on Friday that Ms. Farrell, who oversaw the completion of the Trans Mountain pipeline, will serve as the Chief Executive Office of the Major Projects Office, which will be headquartered in Calgary. So, here we already in the first two paragraphs of this see 2 points of strategy. One, headquartered in Calgary, when Danielle Smith keeps on talking about pipelines, 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 this, and headed by Don Farrell, a veteran energy industry executive, former head of Trans Mountain, the pipeline that got built during the Trudeau years that Danielle Smith refuses to acknowledge ever got built during the Trudeau years, even though she crows about the money Alberta's making off of it and what a great manager she is of the economy due to the extra benefit of that pipeline she does not acknowledge was built during the Trudeau years. Headquartered in Calgary, headed by a woman from the energy industry who is the former head of Trans Mountain. That's a lot of sucking up to Alberta from the federal government here. Not without a purpose, however, because according to polling, it would seem that the Prime Minister's approval rating is at about 68%, but the thing that is unheard of, it's at about 59% in Alberta. A liberal branded Prime Minister, even though Mark Carney really is more like a progressive conservative, but he's carrying the liberal brand in Alberta with 59% approval. Just putting the Major Projects Office in Alberta, headed by a former energy industry executive. That's going to make a lot of people in Alberta happy. It's probably going to make Danielle Smith swear behind closed doors because, as we know, Mark Carney had a stroke of genius in the initial meetings uh, in Regina with the first ministers when they were talking about these energy projects and clearly put the ball in the court of the premiers to find and bring forward proponents. And Danielle Smith promised that she would have one in weeks for a pipeline. That was in June. We're in September. She still doesn't have a proponent. Now the head office is in Calgary, and it's headed by a veteran energy industry executive, former head of Trans Mountain, who you think would be rather amenable to pipelines. But Danny still doesn't have a proponent. She's going to have a hard time blaming the lack of pipeline on Mark Carney. He seems to be bending over backwards for a new pipeline, the way that Danielle Smith is bending over backwards for a referendum on separation. Seems to be sending all the signs that he's really, 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 really open to it. If only she could just find a proponent for a viable project. I'm not sure Danny's interested in doing that work at the moment. She kind of seems to have her hands full, being obsessed with what's in people's pants. Just saying. Moving on. The office's mandate is to, quote, serve as a single point of contact to get projects built faster, according to the release. Quote, it will do so in two principal ways. First, by streamlining and accelerating regulatory approval processes. Second, by helping to structure and coordinate financing of these projects as needed, the Prime Minister's office said. Ms. Farrell was the president and chief executive officer of Trans Mountain before transitioning to the board chair in 2024. She's held a number of other executive positions in the energy sector, including at TransAlta. And I believe she also has some work experience at BC Hydro. And there was another on the board of something, I think it was called ATCO, which is, I believe, an Alberta based utility that does have some interests in the natural gas sector as well. So, extensive experience in that particular sector. Mr. Carney vowed during the federal election campaign to get the country back in the business of building big things. He promised his government would approve major resource and infrastructure projects of national interest in 2 years and earmark $5 billion for a new trade diversification corridor fund. Now, here's another thing that lets you know that Pierre's current line is BS. Now, Pierre doesn't have much to work with at the current moment, of course, because, we're early on in the days of government. But he's talking about, why are there no shovels on the ground yet? Well, all along, Mark Carney promised that his government would approve major resources and infrastructure projects of national interest in 2 years. So the office has been open, and now we have 2 years. Now, there will be some that will be approved before, and we kind of have an idea of which ones those are. As we mentioned, there were the ports in Churchill and the port in Montreal, and they're also very gung ho on that electricity project between Labrador and Quebec. But, and there might be other things that come along. But a pipeline is not going to be on that first list, most likely, unless there already is a proponent in a route. And I haven't heard anybody talking all summer about there being a proponent and a planned route. So when Pierre is complaining about no shovels in the ground, and if he makes a link directly to pipeline at this moment, when all along we have been told, and Mark Carney ran on, right, bringing down the approval times from about 5 years or more to within 2 years. Well, we're not within the 2 years of the establishment of the office yet. And if he complains, well, it's just another bureaucracy. Well, I mean, how would he do it? Just have people bring proposals to the ministers or directly to his office, and he would rubber stamp them himself? Shades of Doug Ford. Allegedly. That's Pierre seems to be when Pierre's complaining about creating just another bureaucracy, that's all we've got yet. Pierre is stating that if he was the prime minister, he would be doing all of this without any process and any method whatsoever, uh, without any bureaucracy, it seems, to give him an assistance in actually making the project reality when you do need some bureaucracy to do that, all while promising that he simultaneously had the stuff, despite having less education, less ability, less people skills, and just less skills general, to already have negotiated a successful trade deal with Donald Trump that would not have had us make concessions that we would not have had to make or should not have had to make, at least until the court cases are over. And we just got a decision recently stating in the United States, the next appeal the first appeal that he went to, stating that, yeah, pretty much most of his trade tariffs, the ones that he has declared within the context of a national emergency, so the fentanyl ones and the reciprocal ones that he's imposed on the entire world, but not the steel and aluminum tariffs and the auto industry ones, because he did those under another provision. But those ones specifically have been deemed illegal now for the second time. Of course, it doesn't change anything on the ground because the court granted a stay of the implementation of its ruling to give Trump time to file an appeal at the Supreme Court, which he will clearly do. And then we'll have to see whether or not the Supreme Court decides to actually enforce the law as it is, or decides from the bench to make new law, which is very ironic for the 6 Republican judges who claim to be originalists and stand against judges creating new law from the bench. But when that decision came down, pretty much anybody who knew what they were talking about had to turn around and said, see, this is why you don't make concessions early. This is why you don't rush in to be the first to get a quick deal and give things away that you don't know you need to give yet, that the law does not say you need to give. Because once you make a concession, I've made this point on the show before, right? The way that this game has changed. At the beginning, we wanted a quick deal. Go in, let's hammer out something quickly, and let's make sure that we maintain stability and certainty. It became clear that we're not going to get that. That is not on the menu. Donald Trump will not allow that to happen. So we had to change the way we play the game. So we have. And now it seems that the government of Canada, even though they have not yet said this publicly, has decided that maybe the best thing for us to do is to try and drag and wait this out as much as possible. Because, one, why would we make all these concessions before we even open up Kuzma again for the review? Why would we give that away at this stage when there's a whole other stage coming? Number one. And number two, midterms are coming and things can happen. So maybe it's better, if you sit back and do the math, to take these tariff hits for however long Trump remains in power or has authority, whether it's midterms or the end of the term, or whether something happens, given all the rumors about his health prior to that, that creates a situation where he is no longer president, and there might be somebody there who might be slightly more reasonable when it comes to understanding that businesses need stability and predictability, and negotiate from that point on without having first made a concession, because once you make a concession, it's hard to claw that back. So maybe it is just better to take these tariff hits for a little bit and hope that there will come a time when there's a person more reasonable that can reduce these tariffs, rather than cutting off a whole arm, rather than just a finger right away as an opening bid, which seems to be the position that Pierre Poilievre would have taken. Just run in. What do you need? Yep, anything for stability and security, and then gamble that would have worked out for us. All right. Going back to the article. Well, I guess that's it. Actually, the article was relatively short. Mr. Carney vowed during the federal election campaign to get the country back in the business of building big things. He promised his government would approve major resource and infrastructure projects of national interest in 2 years and earmark $5 billion for a new trade diversification corridor fund. Mr. Carney's focus on getting projects built faster was in part a response to the threat of U.S. tariffs, or the threat that those tariffs posed for the Canadian businesses and workers. So there you go. Just basically, yeah, that's a quick and dirty about it. I'm really surprised that there wasn't more, especially particularly from the Globe and Mail. And this it was a little more, how would I put it? Um, Associated Press style, just the facts, which is not bad. But yeah, really interesting. Um, okay, let's go to the major projects office site here. It says that the goal of the office here is going to bring together people and processes to move major projects forward faster, responsibly, and sustainably while respecting the rights of Indigenous peoples and protecting the environment. The flagship initiative is the advancement of nation building projects through the Building Canada Act. We are also supporting the Government of Canada's review of policies, regulations, and legislation to make changes to achieve a 2-year timeline for all federal decision making for major projects and supporting the implementation of the concept of one project, one review through cooperation agreements with willing provinces. So there you go. And as they were announcing the office as well, they were also announcing that that it was talked about before, but that there would be an Indigenous Advisory Council with that. So it says here that our work will be guided by an Indigenous Advisory Council to ensure that reconciliation, partnership, and Indigenous economic participation are embedded in the way major projects are advanced in Canada. It says that the council will support the major projects office by ensuring that, well, yes, I just said that. Embedded in major projects advanced in Canada, the council will provide expert advice on policy, operational practices, and process improvements related to the inclusion of Indigenous perspectives on and interests in major projects. The council will help shape how the office works with Indigenous peoples, including providing advice on advancing economic participation in major projects and how to best integrate the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples principles throughout the process. The membership of the council will be confirmed next month and will be comprised of representatives from First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and modern treaty/self-governing partners. Okay. That last one, the modern treaty self-governing partners, is the one that's creating issues uh, with certain groups. When the premiers included some of them, it caused issues with ITK. They decided to not participate, accept the invitation to participate in that meeting between the premiers and the groups. And again, when the federal government had the consultation with the Métis community, as we mentioned, the Manitoba Métis Federation declined to participate because of the participation of the Métis National Council and the Métis Federation of Ontario, if I believe is the name of it. But the Métis group in Ontario specifically, that the Manitoba Métis Federation does not recognize. Um, the federal government is taking the position that we want to deal with all Indigenous entities and bodies in this case, even though there might be some issues among the various groups in that case. It's an interesting perspective to include them all. Um, Because, I mean, one would think that that's what you'd want to do is to include everyone. But again, there are some sensitivities and there are some histories involved in terms of the cultural aspects and historical aspects and rights and title aspects um, within the community. Like I said, that I'm not extremely familiar with. I can only say the top line, and I don't know where it stems from or whatnot. My knowledge is not that deep yet, but that the act of including them triggers those fault lines, for lack of a better word, within the broader community. But here, the goal seems to be to include all the groups, and then I guess the ones that don't participate do not. But you know, if you don't have the participation of the Manitoba Métis Federation, you don't have the participation of ITK in certain instances. that makes things difficult because they're kind of the big ones for for their various their various groups. So yeah, their respective groups, I should say, in this case. So yeah, there'll be a little bit of difficult navigating uh, to do in this case, but hopefully it will go well. So that is indeed the announcement of the members of the council is to come. Major Federal Projects Office is committing $40 million over 2 years to increase the capacity of Indigenous peoples to engage on major projects early and consistently. And the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program facilitates access to affordable capital to Indigenous groups, initially launched with $5 billion in loan guarantee authority focused on the energy and natural resources sectors. The Government of Canada doubled the program to $10 billion and extended its scope to major projects across all sectors of the economy apart from gaming in March 2025. So those two things also took place and seem to be set up at the moment. With regard to the Chief Executive Officer, Dawn Farrell, as I had mentioned, she did indeed do more of her experience here. She currently serves as the independent chair of the board at the Chimors Company, board chair of Trans Mountain Corporation, and board director at Portland General Electric. She previously served as board director at ATCO Limited, as I mentioned earlier. Previously, she was president and CEO of both Trans Mountain Corporation, where she oversaw its multi-billion-dollar expansion project, and TransAlta Corporation, where she led a major transition from coal to renewables. Farrell's governance experience spans public, private, and nonprofit boards, including past roles with Canadian Natural Resources Limited, the Business Council of Canada, the Conference Board of Canada, the Alberta Business Council, Calgary Stampede, and Mount Royal University, where she served as chancellor from 2020 to 2024. She holds a Bachelor of Commerce and a Master's in Economics from the University of Calgary and completed the Advanced Management program at Harvard University. Farrell is widely respected for her leadership in energy transition, regulatory strategy, stakeholder engagement, and corporate governance. So, and from what I have been reading, it seems that initial reaction to her having been selected is very positive. In fact, I saw someone, I think it might have been Glenn McEachern, state something like you either have to be a fool or a saint to have wanted to take this job. Uh, so hopefully we found a saint. Because if we found a fool, oh my God, we might be in trouble. So I would guess in this instance that we had found ourselves, that Mark Carney found himself a saint. If we were oh man. So yeah, um, as we mentioned, headquartered in Calgary, and there was an interview on Power and Politics the other day with MP Corey Hogan, who is one of the two MPs from Alberta that the Liberals had elected in the last federal election. Trying to see if I can find what his writing is. Calgary Confederation, of course. Yes, Confederation. Yes, he had the very, very, very clever campaign, including Confederation and stuff. Uh, I'd keep an eye on him. There might be some potential for him to move up the ranks in the party, depending on how well he performs. But this was the first time I got to see him in interview, and in the interview, made it clear that the first projects would be announced in the weeks to come, not months. There will be several project announcements, so there won't be just one. So when you see the first one come along, Pierre, what he probably will do would be criticize uh, the what's not criticize the list for existing, but criticize the list for being too small and not enough projects approved, not ambitious enough, not fast enough, not the ones that matter, because there'll probably be no specific thing to get critical minerals onto a ship in somewhere else right away, or a pipeline right away, right? uh, you know but they will be important projects, right? If you there's no point in pulling all those critical minerals out of the ground if you don't have the port capacity to get them out, right? So the the Pierre's going to try to find a way to poo-poo on the work because that's just what Pierre does. So, but you can see this happening. So this is some preemptive communications here saying, first the projects will be announced in weeks, not months. So Pierre, you can calm down. And there will be several project announcements because this will be a rolling list. So Pierre, if the project you really want to see is not on the first one, calm down. It might be coming. Right? This is it's some pre-rebuttal here. Um, he mentioned, brought some attention to the fact with regard to approval process, with regard to things having to do with the environment, that the goal was to move, and I like this expression, moving from concurrent to moving to concurrent approval processes from the waterfall approval process, where one unit approves something, and once it's approved, it goes to the next unit to approve, and the next unit. If there's anything that could be done at the same time, this project, the office seeks to streamline the process in order to do that instead. So what they're calling that concurrent approvals versus waterfall approval processes. And then we had Minister Hodgson um, as well, and Corey Hogan was asked about this, about the announced plans, probably from Trans Mountain, to optimize it, because it seems that we probably could be sending more oil uh, through it, uh, with certain changes. There's maybe yeah, through some changes, and it's the same thing with the LNG pipeline further north, coming out of Kitimat. There are there are ways that uh, the amount that it can carry can be increased. I think like through a uh, I think there's a technology that would permit to compress more uh, the gas that's in it, that would allow more to flow through or whatnot. And so it seems that for Trans Mountain, there would be some ways to optimize it. Uh, and while the federal government is very, very much open to this, they are not they're on the record as saying the optimization of Trans Mountain would probably not be a project big enough to be considered one that is a project of national interest that could make the list. But Hogan stating here, um, quote, it doesn't need to be a project of national interest to be a project of national interest, if you understand what I mean. So, in that sense, that um, while there's lots of value in optimizing Trans Mountain, uh, right, and there's work that can be done, and maybe they'll need some federal support of some kind for that work to be done, just because it's not on the national projects list or has gone through the office, it doesn't mean that it will be ignored or that the government considers it unimportant. It's just that probably, my guess here, this is my speculation, is that um, the additional benefit to the economy from optimizing at Trans Mountain is probably not as significant as the one from expanding port capacity or having a new energy corridor or a liquefied natural gas pipeline that could uh, ship out of Churchill or anything else like that, right? Uh, a big national broadband strategy or whatever the infrastructure is required to have high-speed train, you know, out here from Quebec City to Windsor or Toronto or whatever, right? So in that sense, probably not of national importance, but definitely making the case that this would not be ignored if there was a push to it and if the company had a plan to actually make this happen. So yeah, the sort of that line there doesn't need to be a project of national interest to be a project that will gather some national interest, if you want to put it that way. Um, so yeah, we will see what happens with that. Um, there's a little bit of the interview with him that I've got that I want to show you. Um, and the first bit I want to show you because um, he's asked a question that he does uh, a very good job at stick handling it. And this is why I'm saying one of the reasons you might want to watch for this guy, that he might have some potential um, to go further in the Carney administration, uh, depending on how things, you know, progress with his government and how the popularity remains. But this is a guy that you should definitely keep your eye on. So I will play the question. You will see right away how it's a little tricky to, like I said, the clever bit of stick handling.
Totally. The Conservatives say this new office is essentially another layer of bureaucracy. They're framing it as a roadblock to getting things built. They say the government's, you've been in office for 170 days and nothing's been done yet. What's your defense in the face of that Conservative criticism?
Well, yesterday happened to be 100 days since I was sworn in, so the calendar is pretty fresh in my mind. And I think that this has been at a pretty impressive pace in that 100 days. The fact that the legislation was passed to activate this office, the fact that we now have a CEO, we have a headquarters, these things are occurring. As I mentioned, those lists are coming imminently. And, with all respect to my colleagues across the aisle, they would be the first to be saying that businesses need support in getting through some of these regulatory hurdles. And that's what we're providing. And this is how we're going to be building Canada strong. In fact, they voted for this legislation that it sounds like now maybe they have some qualms with. And so I don't fully take that critique, but certainly it's a good reminder that we need to move fast, and there's going to be an opposition that's going to hold us to account on that fact.
So again, that is a very, very, very skillful way to address that question, because that question is an invitation to bash your opponent, right? So said, oh, there's, especially with the way he closes it out and ends it, like this. Yeah, well, like this one. Well, there's an opposition. I'm sure they will keep our feet to the fire. But not pretty sure. Not sure I accept that critique as it was made. So and handled it, deftly. Didn't get overexcited. Just like very matter of factly. It's like, well, it's only been 100 days since I've been sworn in. So I mean, like, I'm not sure what exactly he's expecting by now, but so very, very deftly handled. And then the next question that was asked here is also one that I find he handles very well. So I will put it up there and play it for you here.
Some folks are a bit anxious with the idea of you moving fast, though. Some First Nations and environmental groups were out today slamming this announcement, slamming the office and its very concept, saying the government is sidelining Indigenous rights, weakening environmental protections. This is your chance to reassure them. Why should they have faith in this process?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the legislation that it comes from really underlines that these standards are not diminished. And in fact, the central role of First Nations and rights holders in these projects is, if anything, strengthened through Bill C5, now that we've got it as a full act, as Building Canada Act. And that the Prime Minister's been crystal clear about that. And one of the things that was announced today, along with the Major Projects Office, is the Indigenous Advisory Council that's going to go with that. And every project is going to look through that lens. That's just a fundamental reality. And the fact is, that's not something we even could legislate away. That's a constitutional right that Indigenous peoples have. So we know certainly the history of this country has been, and increasingly affirmed by the courts, things do not get built unless you get everybody to the table and you work with partners. And certainly Dawn Farrell, the new CEO of the Major Projects Office, knows that too. She has worked on some of the most contentious projects that you can imagine. She's done it while building allies across environmentalists and across Indigenous peoples. And people are going to be very well served by this office and the leadership that was announced today.
Yes.
So there you go. Another well-handled question with an answer that is not loud, boisterous, doesn't punch down on anyone, that highlights the positive or potential positive aspects of things. and makes it very clear, when talking about Indigenous communities, saying like, pretty much, even if we wanted to legislate that away, we could not. So, you we accept this full-heartedly, and we are moving forward in that spirit, um, which is the correct answer as well, the only answer really. Uh, but the manner in which the answer is delivered conveys that this person actually truly does understand what the reality is and does accept it. So it's not standing there fighting it or wondering, oh, why do things have to be this way? It's like it is this way. Even if we didn't want it to be this way, there really is nothing that we could do about it. So it's this way. And because it's this way, we are proceeding in this manner. It's just what we need to do. Um, so, like I said, very encouraged by that. Um, that's the type of politics I prefer to see than what Pierre does. So I've got my eye on this guy because there's some potential here because those were two tricky situations talking about opposition from both sides, coming from both different ways. Pierre saying it's not fast enough. Well, you got other people that are saying it is too fast, and maybe you're not taking too care. So, and he was able to walk the line between those two with a position that was coherent, plausible, possible, was not strident in any way. Yes, and the answers to both together stand. There's nothing in the second answer that's contradictory to the first. So it creates a cogent whole, not HOLE, WHOLE, a cogent whole. So it inspires confidence that people actually have thought about this, have thought of it through, have asked the what if questions, and have put in, shape to their policy to take those into account and potentially even some contingency in case of, um, you know, uh, let me put it, it's more than just surface level, right? I'm going to announce this policy. Oh my God, there's blowback. Oh, well, we didn't intend that. Well, what did you intend? You might be thinking, if you're thinking that I'm referring to Danielle Smith here, I am, right? The book ban thing. We didn't intend that. Well, the law says you did, or your ministerial order says you did. Says no, he didn't. Says, well, that's what's written. So it's like, I don't care. Are we supposed to follow the law, the order, or what it is that you have imagined in your mind was your intent, but that you did not successfully manage to put down on paper? Clearly. Oh, well, I didn't think that far. Well, maybe you should have. Right? Maybe you should have thought of the next step. Okay, if we write this down in this way, how could people potentially react or interpret this? Ooh, my God, they might take away 200 and something books. Or you might be like Lacombe and actually just, decide we don't have the staff to do this and we won't have the staff to do this before October 1st. And we ask for resources and they won't be given. So we're just not going to do this. Hey, everybody, we're donating all of our books to the public. So if you want to come and get them, come take them. There will just be no books because we cannot possibly do the work that the order requires in the time that's required with no additional resources. So either be tagged for noncompliance or get rid of all the books. And that way we can't be attacked. So, and then it's like, no, 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 that's not what I meant. Well, that's what you wrote, but that's not what I meant. Well, maybe then in your process, you should have thought beyond, hey, let's just put it down on paper, put it out and go, ha ha, we win. It seems that the federal government has indeed done this with regard to the creation of the project's office. Again, not so much in the drafting of the law and whatnot, which did require yeah, we need to fix this damage control consultation period. But it seems, and probably that boost to that fund, that doubling of $5 billion to $10 billion in terms of increasing capacity and ability to bid on the projects, and advance their own projects even, right? There's no reason, I don't see anything in the structure that would prevent a project that would originate from within the Indigenous community from being considered at this point. So that could be interesting as well, to see if there are any Indigenous proponents that have their own projects that they would like to bring up that could be part of a project, either a part of a larger project of national significance or be a project of national significance in its own right, all on its own. It seems that the way that things are structured, that even allows the possibility for that, which would be a very, very positive thing. So it seems that they have been thinking beyond just the surface level, which is, again, um, I don't know about you, but I like competence. I like planning. I like foresight. If I'm talking about peace, order, and good governance, foresight and competence and planning and contingency are things that I like to see my elected officials do and take extra time if needed in order to make sure it's there. Unlike Pierre, I have no problem with the federal government or any government whatsoever, regardless of the level, taking a little extra time to make sure they've got the buy-in and that the laws and the orders are written so that what is intended is actually reflected on what's documented, and then go ahead. I'm okay with that. Because then again, as I tell a lot of my friends, I'm essentially lazy. I like to make sure that things are done right the first time. That way I don't have to do them again because I'm lazy. Be lazy. Do it right the first time. So, yeah, I have no problem with that. Pierre, I know Pierre, for him, like I said, the impatience and the fetish for expediency and not good enough, not fast enough, not big enough, not enough. Um, that's his avenue, and it's pretty much the only one he has. But you can't be a cartoon character when you're doing it, right? Not everything can be. Oh my God, how come it's not done now? There are certain things that do take a minimum amount of time. I doubt there's anyone in the country that actually serious in the country that believes that you could get a pipeline approved and a shovel in the ground in 150 days. That's just not going to happen, right? So, you know, you have to, when you're Pierre, he seems to want to swing at every pitch, is the thing, right? Because he's got to flood the zone strategy. Just keep on saying Mark Carney is awful and terrible and awful and terrible and awful and terrible until at some point, he makes a bad decision or makes a decision that slips up like this. And then some people start turning him against him and, turns around and goes, see, I told you, right? It would seem that Pierre, I'm slowly transitioning away here from the office to what the conservatives have to do here, is that it seems that Pierre truly is, as he's trying to protect his job, seems to have believed that um, he didn't blow a 25-point lead. Right? He's looking at it as polling companies said that I would get at least 40% of the vote, and I did get 40% of the vote. I didn't lose vote. It's just that, they're still under the beliefs that the NDP collapsed, and, that's what did them in. But it's like, they can say that all they want. The truth of the matter is that the Conservatives picked up most of those NDP seats where the NDP collapsed. So it's not the NDP collapse didn't hinder them totally. They wouldn't have that many seats. Right? So they seem to, and because Pierre did his own postmortem, he didn't the party didn't feel the need to find an independent person to do it. It's like he truly believes that, I didn't blow the lead, just some freakish things happened, and those things are not going to happen next time. And by the time there is a next time, there will be enough people that will be disillusioned or disappointed or not happy at the speed at which things are going, or Mark Carney will make a bad decision or two, or a plan that Mark Carney was trying to implement gets upended by something else that Donald Trump does, and it comes at a time where people are starting to get impatient and tired of waiting, and they decide to blame Mark Carney for it rather than Trump, whatever. But some things will happen that will make it such that the luster will diminish on Mark Carney. And if I can just keep all the voters I had, well, then I'm golden, which is okay. But as Chantal Hébert made a point on the bridge of saying, that math is too simple, because at the same time as that's going on, given that Mark Carney is being a pretty good progressive conservative prime minister and is showing that he can do conservative policies better than the actual Conservative Party of Canada. I mean, think about that for a second. You're going into a leadership review in January, presenting yourself as a true conservative and someone who has ostracized other people who call themselves conservatives, like Doug Ford and Tim Houston, because they're not conservative enough for your liking. Same thing with the voters, right? You guys are not conservative enough. Well, there are some conservative minded people in Canada who have been voting conservative because they've had no other option, but they don't particularly like all the racism and hate stuff. Well, now they have a conservative leader who is governing conservatively on the fiscal side of things, without all the hate and discrimination and racism stuff. And if those people like what Mark Carney is doing, the whole center part of the center right movement that used to always go to the conservatives may not be willing to go back to them. There are some people that voted conservative last time around who clearly are happy with Mark Carney, as evidenced by the fact that he's got 59% approval rating in Alberta at the moment, who might like the conservative policies that Pierre Poilievre keeps on telling them that Mark Carney has stolen from him, but without all the drama and the hate and the yippee chihuahua loudness. So he might think that he still has those 41%, and he just has to wait for the bloom to fade off Carney. Let Carney slip down to 38, and then he's golden again. He doesn't have to change a thing. But I'm not sure that that's going to work out for him. I'm not sure that's going to work out for him whatsoever. So, yeah. Like I said, he's doing everything he can, right? He's had tried Carbon Tax 2.0. Word on the tweet is that he got a couple of phone calls after that and was told, this is not working for you. It's not looking like you're changing or evolving. He's tried to blame Mark Carney for everything terrible that happened to the British economy. And it's like, while trying to pretend that Brexit didn't happen. That Mark Carney prevented the absolute worst from happening as a result of Brexit. And this puts Pierre in an interesting situation because, once again, just as is the case for him claiming that Mark Carney has stolen all of his policies, all conservative policies, but yet after implementing them, Canada is worse than under Trudeau. And then at the same time, again, right, looking to Mark Carney's tenure when he was at the Bank of England and saying that Mark Carney destroyed England when he was brought in by a conservative government, just like he was here in Canada in 2008. And they also tried to diminish his accomplishments there. It's like every time you point to Mark Carney's career, you point to a time he was either appointed by conservatives working under conservative policies, or now, as you claim, has stolen conservative policies, and that everything Mark Carney touched got terrible. If I keep hearing you say that, the message I'm getting is that conservative policies suck. Conservative governments are bad. Conservative governments have terrible judgment. I mean, if the Conservative government of Canada hired Mark Carney, and now you're looking at it and says, well, he didn't do all that. That was all Jim Flaherty. And then he went to England and then destroyed everything. And now he's over here stealing conservative policies and ruining everything. The thing that I keep on hearing throughout all of that line is conservative being associated with things being ruined. I would really love somebody to put a microphone to Pierre Poilievre and ask him this. If Mark Carney has stolen all your policies and Canada's getting worse, what does that say about your policies? So these things that he's doing to try to win the nanosecond, to win the war, the media war every single day, rather than focus on the long game, are things that are contradictory and basically tie his shoelaces together. And then he starts running and then he falls on his face. Now, the red meat base doesn't care about that because all they want to get is their daily, their daily 3 minutes of hate. Because somebody punches down on Mark Carney for some reason. This is how he's terrible, how he sucks today. Fuck Carney, like this, and and they're happy. But for anybody who's paying attention, and you string them together and you try to make one picture, none of it makes sense. None of it's tethered to observable reality. And I think that Pierre, I have the feeling that the Conservatives and Pierre assume that the number of Canadians that are able to consider all of your statements over time and put them together and determine whether or not you're full of shit or you actually know what you're talking about is way smaller than it actually is. See, unlike Conservatives, I tend to believe that Canadians are smart and savvy, particularly as voters. So that they're not, as we say in French, des cruches, basically empty water jugs just waiting to be filled with what Pierre has to say to them. So we'll see how it works out for him, but there definitely is a base within the party that just wants to be told things that make them feel good. But that's not the entirety of the demographic that votes conservative. There are a lot of actual conservative Canadians who actually care about the principles of conservatism. And back in the days when the conservatives were the institutionalists, rather than the people that want to burn everything down. There's still enough of them out there who are looking for something that's, like I said, coherent, cogent, logical, maybe not rooted in hate and despising other people. Whatever Pierre is doing to ensure that he maintains his leadership of the Conservative Party is not speaking to them, and he will not be speaking to them at all in any way until sometime in January. That gives Mark Carney a lot of time to solidify that support under his own party. And yes, there is a strategic consideration when you're talking about moving to try to occupy more of the center right and leaving your center left flank open. And that is a concern with Mark Carney. Again, while I absolutely trust him and his competence and skills in terms of all the foreign diplomatic stuff, the foreign relations, the rearranging, reorienting the global economy and trade patterns and all that kind of stuff. how is he going to be on local domestic issues like crime and affordability and all those things that keep, while we a lot of us are happy to put on the back burner for a little while we're dealing with the most pressing issue. But those things still are affecting us in our daily lives. And we would like to have them addressed. We would like a party that can walk and chew gum. Pierre is trying to occupy that territory. But on the left, for the NDP, which is looking at its leadership race, that leaves a lot of territory for it to cover, right? The Pharmacare bills that it looked like for a while that the federal government wasn't looking or too interested in doing more on. That's an area they could occupy and they could talk about, particularly since it was their signature policy. And it seems that the Liberals may have noted that there was an opening there because Davis Legree of iPolitics has an article published yesterday that has saying, which was a little different than what we read into the record before, the Liberal government isn't ruling out additional pharmacare agreements with the provinces now, because it didn't seem they were too enthusiastic the last time we dealt with this subject. But Prime Minister Mark Carney plans to wait until the impact of pre-existing deals can be evaluated before starting new negotiations, according to the federal health minister. So that is a subtle change in language. We're not close to it. We just want to see what the impact of the pre-existing deals can be before we keep moving forward, as opposed to it's not something we're really looking at right now. Since Pharmacare legislation was passed last year as part of Justin Trudeau's supply and confidence agreement with the NDP, funding deals have been negotiated with PEI, BC, Manitoba, and Yukon, but Carney has so far been non-committal about expanding the program to other jurisdictions. Initially, these agreements that cover the cost of diabetes medication and contraceptives were framed by Liberals and New Democrats as a potential first step towards a national pharmacare program that would apply to various classes of drugs. But progress towards a wider and universal single-payer program has stalled since Carney became Prime Minister in March, despite a reported willingness from other provinces and territories to participate in the program. Instead, the Liberals campaigned this past spring on protecting agreements reached by previous administrations, leaving the policy's future unclear. In an exclusive interview with iPolitics, Health Minister Marjorie Michel said Ottawa is not currently engaging in discussions with other provinces, but that the government is broadly supportive of expanding pharmacare coverage. This is different than what we reported a few weeks ago, because there seemed to be no interest whatsoever. But now the line is nobody can be against pharmacare, but we are in a very special context right now. Everything is still on the table, and we are tracking those agreements that have already been done to see how it works. Then we'll see for the rest. Saskatchewan has said it will engage constructively with the federal government in future pharmacare negotiations, while New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt campaigned on covering the costs of contraceptives in the run-up to her provincial election victory last year, though the Atlantic province has more recently raised concerns about the federal approach. As reported by other media outlets, pharmacare funding deals in Manitoba and PEI have already helped thousands of residents access medication, though the programs have seen issues with insurance providers dropping coverage for federally covered drugs. Programs in British Columbia and Yukon are scheduled to begin next year. Earlier this year, as reported by iPolitics, healthcare advocates aired concerns that the Liberals were walking away from its commitments on pharmacare and suggested any equivocating sent, quote, a bad signal to provinces considering participating in the program. Meanwhile, Drew Ojajay, executive director of the Council of Canadians, said in a statement that the Carney government has, quote, no mandate to, quote, snatch away coverage from patients struggling to afford medication. Quote, pharmacare saves lives, it saves money, and it helps take the pressure off our overburdened healthcare workers. It can also ensure workers who lose their jobs due to Trump's tariffs don't lose their drug coverage at the same time. Michel, the Minister of Health, also insisted that certain provinces looking to opt into federal pharmacare coverage are not interested in the proposed funding model, and she emphasized that the federal government would not, quote, force policies upon the premiers, which are largely responsible for administering healthcare. She said her upcoming federal, provincial, territorial meeting with her ministerial counterparts from across the country in October will be an important forum for discussing the future of pharmacare, among other issues. Michel, a new MP who succeeded Trudeau in the Montreal riding of Papineau, was among the rookie ministers named to Carney's post-election cabinet. The former political staffer said she spent the summer traveling and engaging with stakeholders to determine the consensus priorities facing healthcare systems across the country. What's been the number one issue? Michelle was unequivocal: access to care. Quote, "It's an issue across the board," she said. "People are having challenges getting access to care. There's not enough doctors, not enough nurses. We can do much better. Everybody's struggling. There's nobody who's an A+ student and another who is an F. So we have to put our strength together and see how we can improve the system." Michelle added that one of her goals is to depoliticize the health file to better work with provincial and territorial colleagues across the partisan spectrum, insisting that improved collaboration is key to bettering the country's healthcare services. Entering her first fall legislative session, Michelle said one of her immediate priorities will be to reintroduce Bill C-72, which proposed changes to help standardize processes related to the collection and sharing of healthcare data. Introduced last spring, the bill never reached second reading and died on the order paper when the recent federal election was triggered. Quote, "It will make a big difference for the workers because we are still on the fax system and it takes a lot of time," she said. "If we pass this legislation, it will help health professionals to shorten the time they spend on administrative tasks." So there we go. With that, at least it looks like Pharmacare is not dead, which is very positive. But that is an issue, putting that on the fire that the NDP can bring forward. There's also the issue, as I keep on mentioning, with regards to the supports. When we're talking about the tariffs, there have been supports announced for certain industries and for workers with regards to retooling or retraining, but there hasn't been salary and income supports yet announced, other than making access to EI a little easier. But there needs to be some changes that are legislated in on that front in order to keep Canadians whole. And we haven't heard any talk about that either. So that is, territory that's ripe for the NDP. But the NDP is in a bit of a situation at the moment in that it has to decide what type of party it wants to be. The NDP traditionally has roots as a workers' party, but there's also been more recent move to take on what people would call social justice warrior issues uh, that are particularly popular in more urban areas. And the NDP is one of these parties that had many seats in the urban areas, but also many seats in rural areas as well. And which makes campaigning difficult because you need to have something specifically for both. That's very high profile, and and what you're doing in the cities, for example, let's say on guns, doesn't contradict with what you're doing in the rural areas, right? Um, and it would seem that under Jagmeet Singh, that the party did abandon the worker roots and did abandon the rural sort of aspects of its party to focus more on the urban issues. Um, and that created an opening for the Conservatives to come along and campaign, particularly for the workers' vote, which they did a pretty decent job in getting in the last election, which is kind of interesting because the Conservative Party, it's not the party that supports workers. It's the party that supports bosses. But yesterday, the federal NDP officially launched the race to find its next leader. In a news release, the party says there have been strong interest in the contest since August 20th when the application packages were made available. Former leader Jagmeet Singh resigned after he and the party suffered a stunning defeat. Well, it wasn't stunning defeat. We actually saw it coming. Maybe stunning in its scope and the size, but even then we kind of saw that coming. Um, so, well, I guess, yeah, stunning but not surprising, perhaps. Yeah. Uh, Former leader Jagmeet Singh resigned after he and the party suffered a stunning defeat in April's federal election. Registered party members will vote on Singh's permanent successor at a national convention in March using a ranked ballot, which allows delegates to list candidates in their preferred order. So we're not going to have about a 6-month campaign here. Anyone running for the leadership must obtain at least 10% of the required number of signatures from New Democrats aged 25 years or younger. So they're looking to the future here, trying to establish a base that might stay with them for the long term. So you can see here the plans, some elements of plans to ensure continuity in the future for the party. And perhaps an acknowledgement that they are going to be in a bit of a political desert for a while yet, also, by doing this. Candidates must also collect at least 50 signatures from each of 5 regions: the Atlantic, Quebec, Ontario, the Prairies, and BC, and the North. And I think there might have been 1 or 2 more conditions for the signatures that we read when it was first brought to our attention. But yes, the race now is officially on. Like we said, no declared candidates at the moment. However, um, Heather McPherson, who is one of the 7 MPs who have been elected, is very strongly considering, and pretty much everybody says that, it's pretty much a certainty that she will throw her hat in the ring. She seems to have been positioning herself for that based on pronouncements over the last few weeks and months. And the other person they are talking about is Avi Lewis, I believe the son of Stephen Lewis, who is a fairly high ranking in sort of NDP history and NDP royalty, if one would use that term. But he has run a couple of times before for a seat, and not necessarily picking the easiest ridings, and has not succeeded. But he is very well known, definitely good name recognition. And then there was another one, someone from Quebec, I think, Yves Engel, I believe, was the name that I had heard, who was considering it a name that's not as well known, not known to me in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know who this person is. I couldn't tell you a lot about them. But we're hearing about those 3 names in particular. And yeah, well, the first 2 names, more in particular, the 3rd name was new, but those are the ones. But still, nobody yet. Now, of course, again, with a 6-month race, there's going to be some time. It's still interesting because usually in a party race, there's always someone who rushes in to be first. Usually it's someone, either someone that wants to make himself inevitable, like Pierre did when the Conservatives had their race. He was the first name in, and, it's me. No bother. Nobody else bother registering or even trying. I got this. This is mine. And he ran a campaign of inevitability, shock and awe, in order to make itself that, anybody would only consider him. When we had the Liberal race, I believe, early on, I think it was Frank Bayliss might have been the first one in. So a name that wasn't very well known, but while other bigger names were waiting to gather their stuff together and make their announcement, and also trying to schedule their announcements so that they wouldn't compete with each other or take each other's fire away on their announcement day. He was able to get 2 or 3 days, pretty much alone, to sort of introduce himself and make his case. So I would have thought that there would have been somebody on the first day saying, I'm here. Probably someone that didn't have enough of a lot of profile to try and take advantage of the first few days when there was nobody else in the competition to try and make a first impression or a mark that they could carry forward into the race. But that has not happened yet. So again, not sure how long it will take to have a first declaration. In this case, because again, they've had the packages since sometime in August, and have had time to feel the pulse for whatever their candidacy would be, and see whether or not it's worth it for them to go in. They've had a little bit of time to do that, but given that it's a 6-month race, it could be a situation where, a week or two go by before someone still officially declares. There might be some people from other parties or in the media that would like to interpret that as, wow, gee, the race is declared and, nobody stepped up in the first day or two to say, I want that. Gee, this must be the job that nobody wants, right? Which is, again, if I was in an opposition party, uh, it might be something I would do if I wanted to try and hobble the NDP a little bit and say, yeah, gee, wow, great future. Nobody wants the job. Don't all rush in all at once now. It would probably get me a day of media if I were to do that. Uh, Probably wouldn't be the kindest thing to do. But there's an opening there if somebody wants to take it and be that person that's created by the situation. Um, but yes, the NDP is in that situation where they need to figure out what it is they want to be. The big issue for that party that could be a make or break one is the whole issue of Palestine. If they want to appeal to younger people um, who there's a core demographic, particularly among younger Canadians, that seem to be um, very preoccupied with that issue. Um, will the issue be a litmus test? Right? How much provenance does it have? Does the party, if a lot of the campaigns have a lot of rhetoric on that, one would be forgiven if they were assuming that the candidates representing that would be more on the urban social justice warrior sort of bent. Those type of issues, which are very, very important, but may not be top of mind for the majority of the electorate as an issue on which they vote. Doesn't mean that they don't care about it. Somebody pointed that out to me a few weeks ago. Made the important distinction. Says because I was looking at some polling numbers and made a comment. Says, "Wow, it says a lot about what people think about this." Is about homelessness? I think it was. I said it's like, and somebody corrected me, rightfully. Says, "Don't make that assumption. Don't make that assumption." It's like I care about homelessness very much, but right now, where I am in my life, with all the stuff that's going on, um, I want to eat and I want to pay my rent. And those are the issues in which I'm voting. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So there's a very distinct difference between the issues on which people vote and the issues on which issues about which people care. And the social justice warrior stuff, while it may be stuff that a lot of Canadians care about, even NDP voters care about, um, those uh, could have been traditional NDP voters, members of trade unions and all that kind of stuff, um, with what's going on with the United States, might have other things on their mind and might want a political party that first speaks to those issues rather than the other ones. So the NDP, that's where their landmine is which issues are they going to put forward as the core ones for the party as they go forward and how consistent they will be. Yes. And if they decide that it's going back to issues of class and workers' rights and that type of stuff and income equality and all that kind of stuff, and which means talking less about Palestine, talking less about the transgender community, talking less. There is going to be some loud and boisterous objection to that from people who are very good at getting media attention, and that will cause problems for the NDP. And vice versa, if they make the other stuff, if they make the Palestinian issue and transgender issues and um, all the other issues of that kind of type the focus rather than meat and potatoes, kitchen table economic issues. As- Again, they will appeal to another segment of the society, uh, but they could lose or solidify, um, consolidate conservative gains on kitchen table issues from the last election. So the NDP does have a very interesting existential question to ask itself. What type of party does it want to be? Whose issues do they wish to represent first? Which ones do they want to prioritize? Um, and how much focus they're putting on class versus idealism. And then they got to move forward from that point and figure out. Now, while this is a tricky situation, it does present the opportunity for a very intriguing and interesting party leadership race that could gain more media attention than normal and maybe even some donations and funding and backing. Because I certainly would love to see this debate happen within the party. I would love to see a candidate, come up and say, like this, these are the issues. There's a genocide going on. We have to handle that. There's nothing more important. You know, we got to do that. And I'd like to see somebody come up and say, so like, genocide is a terrible thing. Yes, but you know, Donald Trump is trying to crush us, and there are people here who can't make ends meet, and we need to focus on them and have that debate. And maybe by having that debate, uh, you know, there will be a candidate that will figure out that, hey, we do need to do a little from column A and a little from column B, but here are the proportions, and here is where we put the emphasis on one versus the other. But even though we're doing a little bit of both, this here, right here, has to be the core message that we hit. Because I would like to see a lot of people come in this race, and I'd like to see this is the one that has the chance to have a real clash of ideas and philosophies and whatnot, and could be very, very interesting if we get the right number of candidates and candidates who can speak to us about these issues like humans. And so, yeah, it'll be a very interesting. It has the potential to be a very interesting race. And I hope that that's what we get to see a lot of people jumping in with a good variety of opinions and takes and hash them all out and see if there's somebody in that mix that has a good listening skills and says, you know what, that was a good idea from that person there and there. And if I take that and that and put it together, maybe I can do this and, and come up with some type of platform that is um, covers all the bases as many or as many as possible, but in a coherent way that has a very clear focus on one or two key messages, and a good plan to execute on that strategy. All right. So that is liberals, conservatives, and Greens. With regard to the liberals, sorry, not conservatives and Greens, liberals, conservatives, and NDP. With regard to the liberals, there is the retreat, as I mentioned earlier before when we opened the show, going on. It's going to be a 2-day. They're not calling it a retreat. I think they've had another name for it to not make it sound like it's a vacation thing. But it's basically the typical thing that happens. Parties will get together prior to the fall legislative sitting to have meetings and lay out some strategy and set out some priorities and stuff like that. So it will be the second such retreat since winning the spring election for Prime Minister Carney, but the first involving his new chief of staff, former Canadian ambassador to the United Nations, Marc-André Blanchard, and his new principal secretary, David Lametti, the former justice minister. Carney's first cabinet retreat at Meech Lake in Quebec in May was a secretive 2-day post-election planning huddle. The Prime Minister's office denied media access to that event, a departure from the practice of Carney's predecessor, Justin Trudeau, whose ministers used to hit the media microphones at cabinet retreats to promote the government's plans and priorities. This time, however, media will be allowed access to the site of the cabinet retreat, but there's sort of like this talk or this sort of vibe coming from Mark Carney that says, this is a work event. It's not a media or PR event. So you're there, media, but you won't be our focus here like this. And, it's a meeting. It's a meeting. It's a work meeting. That's what you're covering here. The Prime Minister's office said the meetings set for Wednesday and Thursday will focus on fast-tracking major project approvals, building more affordable housing, expanding the domestic defense industry, and helping sectors battered by U.S. tariffs to retool and diversify. A PMO news release also said the meetings, quote, will advance the beginnings of Canada's preparations for the review of the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement on Trade, which is scheduled for 2026. Carney's government faces a packed agenda this fall with U.S. President Donald Trump's roller coaster global tariff war and rare fall budget slated for sometime in October. And that's another thing with the project's office. While we might have a few announcements come before the budget, probably a lot of them will come after the budget, where some of them will then be approved and named, and if there's any type of funding that is required from the federal government to go towards it would probably be announced at that time. So again, we might get a list of first projects announced prior to the budget, and then one coming within the context of the budget itself. So already there might be 2 announcement dates that we know of projects under this office scheduled, and then who knows, maybe there'll be more as the time goes by. Experts are predicting a higher federal deficit when Carney's highly anticipated first budget is released in October. Carney has already signaled he plans to make defense a budgetary priority as Canada seeks to meet the NATO defense spending benchmark of 2% of GDP. And this is something that will definitely cause Mark Carney a little bit of PR trouble, particularly with Pierre out there. But Carney is definitely making an effort to distinguish between operational and capital spending and making moves on the operational budget to make some cuts while increasing the capital spending, because that's what we're going to need to do in order to get a lot of these projects off the ground and to reorient the economy. So odds are we will be running higher deficits if we're just looking at the top line number specifically. And you can expect Pierre to be jumping on that for sure. Carney said it would have been premature to put out a budget in the spring given the economic uncertainty caused by Trump's trade war. The Prime Minister has also talked about imposing a new level of fiscal discipline, finding cost savings and balancing the operating side of the budget. Carney's team has for months now promoted new legislation that lets government fast-track major industrial projects for approval and will want to demonstrate progress on that front. Carney said in Berlin on August 26th that he plans to start making port infrastructure announcements in the coming days. The Liberal caucus is also expected to meet the following week in Edmonton before Parliament returns on September 15th. That will give the governing Liberals another opportunity to take control of the political agenda before MPs return to Ottawa from their summer break. So that was a report by the Canadian press who brought that forward with us. But yes, brought that forward for us, I should say. So yes, going into these meetings to make sure that they are establishing their plans and agenda and all that kind of stuff for what's coming up in the session, and of course with the budget as well. The budget is expected to contain some significant belt tightening as well. People are wondering what cuts there will be, and that will create an opportunity there probably for the NDP again to you know take up some space in the media sphere. So, but I'm guessing that the Liberals are making the calculation here that the NDP is so far back that even if it gives away a little territory on the left, if it's able to capture, you know, 4 or 5% on the center right and lock it in, that's probably best for its political future, particularly if the Liberals are considering at some point um, engineering their own defeat to provoke another election that might get them the majority that they wanted, depending on how polls shape up at the time. So that is also another possibility there. That if the Liberals are not looking at a 4-year timeline, but are looking at a 1.5 to 2.5 timeline for the next election, um, shoring up the vote, the center right vote that was going to Pierre, who might like conservative policies without all the hate and jingoism and sloganeering and all that kind of stuff. Um, that could be a case so that the NDP wouldn't be back on its feet enough to present a serious challenge, but enough dent in that side of the conservative vote would have been made for the Liberals to secure another term and hopefully a majority one for them if they were to make that move. That could be an option. So um, the Liberal government does have some motivation in being able to move fast, hit hard, make some big moves, get some big press, and try to get some bump in approval rating, or generate a further decrease in conservative approval rating, and then try to find a way eventually to engineer its defeat. That could be a thing. We know for the moment that the Bloc Québécois, if what they said remains true, Yves-François Blanchet is not looking at any type of move that could bring down the government until the U.S. midterms take place. Like I said, if that holds true. In fact, of all the federal parties, the Bloc Québécois is the one that probably has the least work to do or things to consider for the future. They're the party that is most able at the moment to just continue doing business as usual and and have things work out for it. But everybody else seems to have to scramble a little bit, or at least do some planning. The other one, we don't talk about them a lot, but still important to mention. With the Greens, it looks like they will be looking for a new leader as well, because on August 19th, Elizabeth May announced that she will not be leading the party in the next federal election. The Green Party, according to CTV, well, the Canadian, but as published by CTV, the Green Party of Canada will once again be looking for someone to replace Elizabeth May after the party's longtime leader said Tuesday she will not lead the Greens into the next election. In an email to members, May said she intends to stay on as MP and as party leader until a new leader is elected. Quote, "We have big plans for the fall of 2025 session in Parliament," May said in her email. "My voice as the sole Green MP in the House of Commons is stronger as leader." May said she wants to grow the party's parliamentary caucus before stepping down while focusing on climate crisis, affordability, and justice and peace in conflict-ridden areas. May also said a key responsibility of her leadership has always been fundraising and that she plans to meet the challenge of closing the books on 2025 in a strong position. She said members will soon receive details about a leadership review and how to participate in a vote. May said she plans to step down once the new leader or co-leaders are elected. Quote, "Succession planning in any political party is tricky, but our federal council is determined to learn from past mistakes and make the transition to a new leadership a positive experience that builds the party," May said. As a team, they will, by consensus, develop the strongest possible plan for the leadership transition and determine the optimal timing for a leadership race. May is the lone Green MP in the House of Commons after the party secured only one seat in the federal election. May became leader of the Green Party in 2006. She resigned in 2019, and Annamie Paul was elected as the party's leader. But May stayed on as the parliamentary leader because Paul did not have a seat in the House of Commons. Paul resigned after the 2021 election when she finished fourth in a Toronto riding. May was re-elected as the co-leader alongside Jonathan Pedneau in 2022. May became the sole leader again after Pedneau resigned in April after acknowledging the disappointing outcome for the party in the federal election. In April, the Greens won just 1.3% of national support, and May was the sole Green candidate to win. In 2021, the Greens earned almost 7% of the total votes cast and elected 3 MPs. The party endorsed 342 nominees to run in April's campaign, but ultimately fewer than 240 candidates were on the ballots. The party said it had trouble confirming all its nominees, in part due to the requirement that each nominee have 100 signatures from electors in their riding. The federal commission running the 2 televised election debates subsequently withdrew Pedneau's invitation to participate in those debates, citing the decision to reduce the number of Green candidates, quote, for strategic reasons. In April, May said that decision undermined her party's chances in the election, and it did. But again, the Greens do only have themselves to blame because they said that they were going to run 342 and they had to be running a certain number of candidates. That was one of the conditions to participate in the debate. And they decided, like I said, for strategic reasons, to make it only 240, but then they were no longer in compliance with that regulation, and that led it to being pulled. They were also probably no longer in compliance with the rule that said it needed to have a certain amount of support in the polls, given how much it was decreasing. But the one about the number of candidates nominated was, it was so clear cut that unfortunately it had to happen. Now the thing, how would I put it? While it was technically the right decision, unfortunately, it was optically the wrong decision, because the decision to disinvite Mr. Pedneau happened so close to the date of the debate, when everybody was aware that 240 candidates were on the ballots for a certain number of weeks. And you would have thought that once it was confirmed that there was just 240 candidates, when there was no more time to add names to the ballots, that decision would have come the day after or immediately, but it didn't. So in that sense, everybody was under the impression that, well, okay, the Greens are accepted and that they will be there. And the announcement came as a shock and a surprise, with very little time for the party to appeal or regroup in any way. And that definitely sunk them. So it might have been the right decision based on what the rule said, but it was delivered at such a terrible time and so poorly executed that it probably did more damage to the party than had the decision had come down the second that the candidate listing period was closed. And then said, well, the candidate period is closed and we see you don't have the number, so sorry, we're revoking. And at least that would have given them a certain amount of time to be able to come up with something alternative, right? Or file that appeal, right? Which would have gained them some national coverage during that time as well. So I might have given time for some grassroots movement to start to have them remain in the debate, because back in the early days when they were trying to exclude the Greens, there were a lot of Canadians who, even though they would never consider voting Green, still thought it was unfair that the Greens were not there. And did write letters of support for that purpose. It's like, I may not want to vote for them, but I want to hear from them. Right? I think they should be heard from. So we'll see what happens here with the party. But like I said, she's just announcing that she's not running again. There's no leadership race called yet. There's no date for that kind of stuff yet. And again, there's a certain amount of runway. So there's a chance that might not even happen for this year. But at least Elizabeth May is stating her intention clearly at the beginning of this parliament session, or prior to, that she does not intend to remain as a party leader, and that they need to be looking at a succession plan starting now. So there you go. what's going on with the major parties. Again, like I said, not a lot of time spent on the block specifically, not because of anything other than they're just the party that has the least amount of interesting things having to go on with it. Like I said, not that there isn't any, because we're looking at a provincial election in 2026, which the Parti Québécois at the moment looks like they would be forming the next government, which creates a very different dynamic for the bloc, and there's definitely some strategy at play there and positioning at play there. But given that that's not necessarily imminent, we all have a month and a quarter to go before that. It's not particularly salient for this immediate session of Parliament. As well, kids and cubs, just so you know, well, actually, I'll save that because it'll be in the democracy, something that you do portion. So there you go, kits and cubs. Didn't have time to get to Danielle having to reverse herself again. So we will put that on the schedule for tomorrow, kits and cubs. There's just so much going on. Like I said, lots of news, lots of developments with the various parties as we are positioning ourselves for the return of Parliament. But yeah, um, definitely eager to tell you about Danielle, because she has had to swallow herself 3 times over the last few weeks, and things are not going well for her. So let's put a pin in that one, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about that tomorrow. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really love it when you do, especially when you share a little bit of yourself, when you share our content, why it is that you liked it or why it is you're recommending this, because you are influencers in your own circle. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like us to help you, because sometimes you're out there just making democracy happen, right? Or, volunteering, making your community better, just doing what you need to get through a day, right? Some days, getting up is the win, right? It's different. But sometimes you're not able to join us to watch us live on video. Well, don't worry, because I'm sure that even though you can't watch us on video on any given day, you still want to remain informed and engaged. Well, thanks to the generous contribution of the Ray Girl for several years now. Thank you so much. Our pod page is a thing. So if you would like to scan that QR code that has appeared on our screen, that will bring you there. And if you are listening but not yet subscribed to our pod page, go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click subscribe, our audio cast version, ears only, is right there. And when you click it, when we have something fresh off the podcast bandwidth, zip right into your favorite podcast feed. It comes, it waits for you, it just quietly, calmly, for you to find it and invite it in. It's like that. We like to help. Just put us in your ears. We're lightweight, we're portable, we're aerodynamic. We won't slow you down. Unless what we're saying is so interesting that you're stopped dead in your tracks. Oh my God, I need to listen to what Mr. Beaver's saying right now. But other than that, we won't slow you down. So subscribe today. All right, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us, you can do that by surfing on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. Yes, where Kits, Cassie, and Lane are beckoning you to click our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. When you do, it helps us with the algorithm, and it also makes us very happy to see our numbers go up. So thank you for that. If you would like to help us in other ways, it is the start of the new month. And as you know, kids and cubs, we do have bills to pay because we incur some costs to bring the show to you. And we would definitely appreciate your help. If you're watching live on YouTube, of course, we have our memberships and super chat donations. But if you are listening and would like to help us by making a contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, because, we work for tips. We're self-funding here. And it's because of you and what we put into it that we're able to deliver this for you. But if you would like to help us with that, well, we would appreciate your help. Contribution through our coffee page, coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And there you can do your little bit to keep your favorite beaver moist. Because a moist beaver is a happy beaver. Yes, a couple of loonies or toonies in our tip jar helps us it helps us with the costs that we incur to bring this show to you. And so, if you like what we do and would like to encourage us to do more, we would appreciate that. Now, kits and cubs, if you are buying Canadian, oh, and of course you can scan that QR code that appeared on their page there if you're watching live here or whenever you're watching. If you see that, just scan it. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Go ahead. All right, kids and cubs. Now, if you're doing the Buy Canadian thing, well, hey, we are able to help you there too. True North Eager Beaver at gmail.com is the way that you can make a contribution to the Beaver Lodge. That is win, win, win. One, from your institution to ours, that's a win. Bypassing the CE Tech Pros from the United States who take a cut of your donation and keep it from themselves and then take a cut of that and offer it to Donald Trump so he can do terrible things to us. We don't want to help them. No, not at all. Screw them. And then it's a win because when you go through your bank to our bank rather than the USC Tech Pros, we get 100% of your donation, which means that we're able to bring even more to you. Yeah, your money goes further when you send it to us through a direct contribution. So true north eager beaver at gmail.com is the address at which you do that. Now, kids and cubs, if you're not able to send us a financial contribution, we do not want you to worry about that because the gifts of your participation and attention are the ones that matter the most to us. And we're so glad that you're here, but we also want to hear from you. So true north eager beaver at gmail.com is the same email address you can use to let us know what you think about the show, good, bad, or ugly. If ugly, be gentle because we are sensitive and delicate creatures. But we do want to hear from you. We are definitely open to constructive criticism and constructive feedback. So let us know what you think. Or if you have guests that you would like to suggest to us, we are definitely open to hearing about them. And of course, if you have a home based business or know somebody who does, or are part of a community organization that has an event coming up, and you would like to advertise it a little bit to a group of very engaged citizens who definitely want to support Canadian and who are active in their own communities, then let us know. And we will try to make an arrangement. We have something for absolutely every budget. So please do not hesitate. Even if all you got is like, $35 or $50 a month, trust us, we can make something happen for you. All right. If you need to get the word out, we're here to help. So kits and cubs, call on us. All right. Kits and cubs, because democracy is something that you do, of course, as I keep on saying, forever-canadian.ca, that website, that's where you go to if you want to do your bit, if you live in Alberta, to keep Alberta as part of Canada. Thomas Lukasik has filed a question with Elections Alberta, which was approved. And now, in order to make it a citizen initiative question for it to get on the ballot, he needs to amass about 294,000 signatures, probably more because, Danielle is a little duplicitous and deceitful and would like to probably try to invalidate some of those signatures. So more is better. More is betterer here on this one. So if you would like to see where there is a pop-up place to come and sign, because you do have to sign in front of a witness, and therefore there are canvassers for that. Some areas have a group of canvassers that will come to you if you're mobility impaired. So if you want to look that up, you probably can. If you want to make a donation, pledge to make a donation to help keeping this organization going, because it's all volunteer efforts. Or if you would like to sign the petition and don't know where there's a pop-up spot, you can find one, or you can pledge to sign it so they know to find you. Or if you want to become a canvasser, because we need those too, people to go out and collect those signatures. And yeah, please, you can go to that site and get all the information that you need to do that. forever-canadian.ca. Now, kits and cubs, also, we have some provincial and territorial elections coming up this season in Newfoundland and Labrador this October. There will be a provincial election. Of course, we have the interim premier here at the moment, and then they will be looking to get their actual premier. And in November, I believe it is Yukon Territory turn. So hopefully over the next few weeks, we will be paying attention specifically to news coming out of Newfoundland and Labrador and Yukon Territory, and hopefully being able to give you some updates if you happen to be Kit from there for your provincial and territorial elections. But they are coming up, so hopefully we will have access to a certain amount of news, and so that we can, give you a little bit of information there to help you make your decision in those races as well. But again, you know that these races are coming, so we do advise you to check if there's any way you can volunteer or help out. Not sure if the electoral bodies are still looking to, or have already started looking to staff, but if that's the case, do look into that and volunteer your time for that. Everybody should do that at least once in their life. It's a absolutely wonderful experience. All right, words of wisdom. I'm a bit devoid of wisdom today. I'm. If you have an opportunity, go to bed early. Get some good sleep. That's all I got for you today, kids. I'm sorry. Get some good sleep. Go to bed early if you can. That's my wisdom today. That's all I got. Sorry. Kids and cubs, it can be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. And now, at the count of 3, if I may beg your indulgence, could you all ask Mr. Beaver to please cue the cog? At 1, 2, 3. Oh, I love it. Y'all did that so sweetly. How can I say no? You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, a little bit of Canadians who make us proud. Unfortunately, kids and cubs, Venus Williams and Leila Annie Fernandez run at the U.S. Open in doubles is over. Yesterday, their match was featured on TSN. You could watch it on TV, which was really nice. I hope they do the same thing for Gabriela Dabrowski. But yes, playing the number one team in the world, the number one team in the world showed precisely why it is the number one team in the world. So it was a bit of a spanking. It was a bit of a spanking, but still a quarterfinal run in doubles at a Grand Slam for Leila Fernandez and Venus Williams as a scratch pickup team, and the first time they've ever played together. What a great run. It was delightful to watch them play. I hope that this is a partnership that continues the Australian Open, unless Serena comes back and decides to play doubles again. That would be something. But it would certainly be nice to see that partnership continue. So hopefully for the Australian Open, we'll see Venus and Leila again, because I don't know, there's something about the energy of them two on court together that just works for me. They are just delightful to watch. Even in loss, they were still delightful to watch. So, yes, a little bit sad there, unfortunately, that they are out. However, Gabriela Dabrowski and her partner, Aaron Routliffe, did win their match, and they were the first of the teams to punch their ticket to the semi-final in women's doubles, and they are going to play the number 2 team of Sara Irani and Jasmine Paolini of Italy, also Grand Slam champions in the past. In the semifinal. So it'll be a team number 2 against team number 3 in one semifinal. And listen, it was a perfect doubles tournament because in the other semifinal, it's team number 1 against team number 4. So the 4 best teams did advance to the semifinals. So uh, for organizers, you can't ask better than that. The top teams are all still in the draw. So very exciting. Normally, I would say let's hope for number 1 versus number 2 in the final. But since Gabrielle Dabrowski and Aaron Ratliff for the number 3 team, I'm going to hope for number 1 versus number 3. But yes, it would definitely be an achievement. And again, Gabriella Dabrowski dealt a lot with some breast cancer issues recently, and has sort of like been in and out and inconsistent. That's why her ranking has dropped, because she was, I think, as high as the number 3 doubles player in the world, and then dropped out of the top 10 very briefly because she hasn't been playing every tournament and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that she has been able to keep playing throughout it, and her partner Aaron Ratliff has just been absolutely wonderful. After Cincinnati, she really thanked her because it's been up and down with her being in and out, and Aaron Ratliff sometimes having to keep playing with different partners on an ad hoc basis when Dabrowski has been indisposed for her treatments and that type of stuff. But it seems that this is a partnership that's sticking together through thick and thin. And Gabriella Dabrowski, despite the fact that she's not at 100% all of the time through the last bit, keeps showing up and keeps competing. And sometimes that does mean some early exits, but in there also some success. Because, like I said, they won the big title in Cincinnati, which was a 1,000 title, which is a big deal. So cheering for them. Listen, semifinals is definitely already a big win considering everything that team has been through lately. But, they are champions. And the champions get it done. So it'll be very interesting to see how far they can progress in this tournament if it continues. But they will be scheduled to be playing today if you're into that. The projected time is 5:30, but of course they are not the first team or the first match on the court, so that could be delayed. The other big match today, of course, in men's singles, Felix Auger-Aliassime is playing in the, I think it is quarterfinal. Yes, it is, and he is playing against Alex de Minaur, who is the number 8 seed. Felix Auger-Aliassime is the 25th seed here in this contest, and of all the people that have made the semifinal, Felix Auger-Aliassime is the one who is lowest ranked. So biggest achievement in terms of surpassing your level here. He's been playing very, very, very well. I think throughout the whole tournament, he's lost 1 set only, and that was to the number 3 in the world. But he took out the number 15 in the world in 3 sets with absolutely no problem. Yeah, now taking on the number 8 in the world. Hopefully, Felix Auger-Aliassime is in the zone. It is a winnable match. However, if he does win it, odds are quite good that he'll be facing world number 1 Yannick Sinner in the semifinal. He'll be taking on his fellow countryman from Italy, Musetti, in his quarterfinal. And Musetti can be a tricky player. He's ranked 10th in the world, Lorenzo Musetti. And if he's having a good day, Sinner could have his hands full. And Sinner did have his hands full with Denis Shapovalov when he was playing him, at least for about a set and a half, and maybe a little more at times. He definitely showed that he had some vulnerabilities, and he wasn't playing at the top of his form in that match. So you never know. Perhaps there could be an upset there. But yes, Felix Auger-Aliassime doing exceptionally well in the tournament. Also, kids and cubs at the U.S. Open. There's also a boys and girls tournament, a junior tournament, and there we have two Canadians, Nicolas Arsenault, who had a great result when he played at the National Bank Open, way above his ranking. He surprised people by doing very, very well there, and got a lot of attention. So he was registered in the boys tournament. He lost his first round single match, but he did win his first round doubles match and is still in the draw. And therefore, he will be playing today. And on the women's side, the girls' side in this case, Nadia Lagaev, who won her first round singles match but got eliminated in the second round, however, is also playing in the doubles tournament, and she will be playing today as well. And I believe she is also playing her second round match in doubles, which has been her best results this year in junior Grand Slams. She's had early exits, unfortunately, the luck of the draw. But this one seems to be working out for her and having a little more success than she has. So Nicolas Arsenault and Nadia Lagaev, two names to keep in mind, because you might be hearing a lot about them in the future, given how well their junior careers are going. All right, kids and cubs, that's all I got for you. We will see you tomorrow. Until then, have a beaverific day. Amour et bisous. And like magic, I'm gone.